So the 704 No More it's a litigation, it involves litigation, legislative efforts in collaboration with other groups and grassroots advocacy. We need to build awareness from the top down and the bottom up. So it's just beginning. We're looking for people to join different committees. If people have interest in helping, they could email info@704nomore.org. And we just have to change this. We have to contrast what we want to see in our country in terms of healthy environments with what is really happening today in Congress, where there are bills before Congress to expand wireless, to authorize more wireless spectrum, to eliminate environmental reviews, to approve money that was allocated for high-speed broadband to be used for wireless instead of for fiber, which is far faster speed and many other advantages as well. There are bills before Congress wanting to put cell towers in national forests, in national park recreation areas, and to allow installation of antennas on any structure without consent.
The following information is for educational and entertainment purposes only and is not meant to diagnose, treat, prevent, cure, or prescribe for any medical or psychological conditions. Seek out the opinion of a qualified healthcare professional if you need medical attention. The guests of this show provide their own opinions and may not represent the values or beliefs of Living Waters Wellness Center or Whole Body Detox Show. And welcome everyone to today's Whole Body Detox Show. I'm David DeHaas from Living Waters Wellness Center. Living Waters Wellness Center was formed after we discovered how to heal my body from multiple symptoms, including allergies, asthma, chronic fatigue, back pain, psoriasis, acne, hives, yeast infections, and finally cancer, and I did it all naturally. After 20 years of trying numerous different treatments, medical treatments, cleanses, iridology, muscle therapy, acupuncture, acupressure, homeopathy, naturopathy, those experiences led us to discover that recipe that led to become known as the 4 Natural Laws of Healing. Combining multiple natural healing modalities to fully detox and cleanse the body and allowing the body to take the perfect nutrition to fully restore the body back to its innate health. This became known as a 10-day healing retreat. We've helped thousands of people just like you get their health restored so they can live their life to the fullest. And if you want to learn how you can get your body back to living your best life, go to livingwaterscleanse.com, click on that link, 4 Natural Laws of Healing, and watch the video. Or call the office at 208-378-9911. Good morning, everyone. David DeHaas from Living Waters Wellness Center, where miracles begin by healing from within. And if you've listened to my show over the last 5 years, I think I've done no less than at least 7 shows about electromagnetic frequency and cell towers and the bad placement of them. And we've talked a lot about, how to protect our bodies and what government should be doing. And as you know, I'm a volunteer, unpaid volunteer, going before lots of city council meetings and Ada County meetings and so forth. And not too long ago, I was devastated because House Bill 180 went through. That is basically allows wireless companies to make application if the city governments or county governments or highway districts, even worse, don't reply within 21 days, then it's deemed approved. Shocking that bill went through, but it did. And right about that same time, I got an email about an organization called 704 No More. And I thought, what's this? So I replied out to a lady named Camilla Rees, who is here joining us today on the show, and asked her, what's it all about? I said, I've got to have you on the show. Camilla, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, David. Pleasure to be here.
Well, thanks for joining us. So tell me a little bit about yourself, how you're involved in this, what drove you to be here, and then we'll talk about 704 No More.
Great. Well, I've been an activist on the electromagnetic field issue for 16 years. And when I started, there were less than a dozen people in the United States focused on this issue. And now we've got hundreds of groups because people are starting to realize this is a problem with seeing the cell towers going up near their children's schools or along the highways. You can't escape them. You see them everywhere. So I got involved because I was seriously impacted by the radiation from a neighbor's router initially on the other side of the wall from my pillow. Took me a year and a half to recover. Nobody knew, no doctors knew anything about it back then, had to figure it out. And
how far back was that?
2008.
Oh, wow. Early on. Okay.
2008. And then since then, I've had a few other exposures where I've had to leave in both residential and office environments, and some I've been able to remediate. But I first started a group called electromagnetic health.org. And then I started another website in New York City called Manhattan Neighbors for Safer Telecommunications. That's manhattanneighbors.org. And then I've been involved with through the work doing my work through the National Institute for Science, Law, and Public Policy in Washington, D.C., where we have overseen policy papers on electromagnetic fields, the smart grid, telecommunications, clean energy, and I've done many programs across the country, bringing out the scientists to talk about what they know, including 5 times at the Commonwealth Club of California, which is the oldest public affairs forum in the country. So we've been an early educator on the subject, and more recently, the field has become, much larger, but also extremely fragmented, with groups in different states working, of course, naturally on their own issues in their backyard. But now I'm involved with leading some of the outreach and fundraising for a new initiative led by Children's Health Defense, which is called 704 No More. And it aims to restore local control over cell towers and antennas that was taken away by Section 704 of the Telecom Act of 1996. Local communities haven't been able to fight or to limit the siting of these towers and antennas on health or environmental grounds, and that has to change. So what we're doing is we're bringing the community together. We've got over 85 groups now endorsing this 704 No More effort. We'll have way more than 100 soon enough. And we're trying to broaden out the reach also to other groups that have similar interests, like the environmental groups, disability groups, medical groups. We're doing a lot of outreach right now to get a lot of the doctors groups to sign on. We need to be a force. We need to pull everybody together to really be taken seriously both at the local and national level. So the 704 No More it's a litigation, it involves litigation, legislative efforts in collaboration with other groups and grassroots advocacy. We need to build awareness from the top down and the bottom up. So it's just beginning. We're looking for people to join different committees. If people have interest in helping, they could email info@704nomore.org. And we just have to change this. We have to contrast what we want to see in our country in terms of healthy environments with what is really happening today in Congress, where there are bills before Congress to expand wireless, to authorize more wireless spectrum, to eliminate environmental reviews, to approve money that was allocated for high-speed broadband to be used for wireless instead of for fiber, which is far faster speed and many other advantages as well. There are bills before Congress wanting to put cell towers in national forests, in national park recreation areas, and to allow installation of antennas on any structure without consent. So we have to realize that, not only do we need to communicate about what we want to see, healthy environments for our biology as humans, but also for the ecobiology of the ecosystem, which this radiation is also impacting. We have to contrast that with really what is happening. Why has no action been taken to limit the cell towers and antennas in our country, when people are surprised to learn this, but the U.S. government research goes back to 1971, and other research from other universities even before that, showing very clearly the association between illnesses of many kinds and these radiation exposures. And the U.S. Navy study in 1971 reviewed over 2,200 studies at that time and documented the effects. Well, guess what? We have a chronic illness crisis today that now finally is coming into focus, which is great. But you know how the 23 of the fastest growing chronic diseases today were on the list of the U.S. Navy report in 1971 by Dr. Zori Glazer. And not only has the Navy done a great study, a fantastic review on this, we've also had research, similar things from the EPA, from the U.S. Air Force, from the U.S. Army, from the NIH, from NASA, 2 studies from NASA, from the Department of Interior saying that exposure guidelines are not adequate to protect wildlife. and from the Defense Intelligence Agency. Why we have to ask, why is our government, why are members of Congress still putting bills forward wanting to expand this when their own studies show the risks?
That's interesting. We just testified before Ada County, and one of the gentlemen that testified on behalf of us worked in Iraq using these millimeter waves, small cells in Iraq as weapons. And he's testified before Boise City Council. The same thing, the same fact. And what's interesting, on that council was some attorneys. And quite frankly, I've been to several of the local jurisdictions. Meridian, for example, I'm going to call him out because I sat down with them, and he did not believe Andrew Campanelli. And quite frankly, I just find it, you've got this skill set, but yet you're too lazy, in my opinion, to read the freaking code and actually determine that we don't need the small cells are just for broadband, like you said, when they can legislate those out easily. But for them to ignore it, especially with all this sickness we've had in Boise, our AFib rates in Boise, Camilla, are through the roof. And my good friend Hank Allen, he was part of the lawsuit that Scott McCullough, you're probably aware of, just took on his behalf. And Hank was their star witness. Unfortunately, the appeals court, basically handed their lunch and said, go back, and you cannot, we're not going to give accommodation under the American Disabilities Act. Kind of a sad thing. But also interesting to me was that there's two industries that can cause harm and get away with it. You got the vaccine makers, immune from liability. And as I understand it, the cell tower companies, you can't file a tort claim against them.
Yeah, well, one of the big issues, well, there are actually two core issues that are still enabling the rollout of more and more antenna infrastructure. And the one is that Section 704 that I mentioned that's got to be changed. And the other one is the FCC exposure guidelines. So those inadequate exposure guidelines that are not based on biological evidence, they are giving cover. They're protecting all kinds of parties from liability. They're protecting employers that put the tech in their companies. They're protecting schools that allow a cell tower on the property. They're protecting churches that put antennas in their steeple. They're protecting property owners and installers of the equipment because they can say, well, we're within the FCC guidelines. And the FCC guidelines have already been called into question by the DC Circuit Court, you may be aware, in
I'm very aware.
2021, and the court is waiting for a response from the FCC that has so far not responded to the question of how can they possibly justify those guidelines when so much evidence
But why
is
haven't they
presented in
responded?
the
Is there
case.
not,
What's
there's
that?
no penalty? So there's no reason for them to respond. They can just,
There was no date. There was no date on
uh,
the mandate. It didn't have a date. So now we're coming up again, it's been several years now, and from what I hear from the lawyers that it's about time to go back to the court and ask them to mandate and give a date or to, whatever the steps they can take. The problem the industry has is that they can't possibly justify the guidelines. How could they respond when there's all this science that shows the biological effects from the radiation? So they're stuck.
let's, yeah, can we, before I forget, I want to dive into that. We're in Idaho. We've got 3/4 of the state is owned by the federal government. It's forest land, a lot of forest land here. When I had Dr. Martin Paul on this show back in, oh my gosh, 2021, I think it was, he told me, and I should follow up with him, he believed that these large forest fires were getting so big because of the cell towers. His theory that he hoped to prove was that, they know that the EMFs cause the terpenes in the trees to get higher, which is like throwing some gas out there on a tree,
Yeah.
which is not a big deal until you light a match. So once one tree gets lit, now you've got an explosion. And that was the year, must have been 21, that Oregon had those massive forest fires.
Mhm.
Last summer, Idaho burnt, I don't know, like over 400,000 acres here, really close to Boise.
Yeah,
It's
it's such an important issue, and I have talked to Martin Paul about this, and it is plausible that the higher ter the terpenes create a combustion situation and could have contributed to those fires there as well as the California fires. Now, I don't know anybody that's looking into it, but it's really important.
Is
Yep.
have you got any congressman in to willing to take up legislation and pack it through Congress?
Well, we'll see. I'm sure that there will be some actions going forward. That's really all I can say at this point. It's got to be taken up with Congress. There's also a litigation will help, also the grassroots advocacy. That's why the 704 No More initiative is happening because we need to attack it from all angles. And there are people in Congress that over time that have kind of cared about this issue and um, but as I said, there's all this legislation, put forward by other members of Congress that are seeking to expand it wireless. And so it's a battle. It's as important as any battle that's going to be coming up. And it's time. And I think that, the White House Maha Commission has listed electromagnetic fields on the list of items to be evaluated as to the role they played in chronic illness and they are playing in chronic illness. So it's up for evaluation, and we should hear within a very short period of time. I think they were given like 90 days and then 180 days for solutions. So it's coming up. It's on the list. So it's pretty exciting times that we're in, and it's going to have devastating effects for the telecom industry if the right thing is done. And you may remember the Harvard Edmund Safra Center for Ethics at Harvard Law School that many years back did a report that was called Captured Agency, how the telecom industry, how the FCC is supposed to be is captured basically. And so their analysis showed that had people been told the truth and known about that there were risks from this type of technology, their behavior would have changed. They did a survey, and their behavior and their use of these technologies would have changed. So as more and more people become aware of the risks and the decades of science on this and the US government science on this that clearly spells out the risks, we're going to see changes in behavior, and hopefully we'll also see a stop to this rollout of the antenna infrastructure and start hardwiring America like many other countries have started to do. And we're so behind in terms of the fiber installation compared to other countries. Some other countries have almost 100% fiber communication. So
Name me a couple of countries that you know of.
well, you've got South Korea, that's very close to 100%. You got the Netherlands, Portugal. I can't remember the other countries. I've got to list them somewhere, but there are many. You can Google it, and there are
Okay.
many, many countries that have hardwired. And, clearly we'll need cell towers for cell phone use. You need mobility with a cell phone. I don't think those are going to go away.
But
What we
that's
do
okay if
know,
we get them
though,
200 feet in the air and put them, 4 or 5 miles away from the
yeah,
city center or the neighborhoods and let
yeah.
them carry the text and phone records and then hook into your local Wi-Fi or hardwire your home like many people are doing.
Yeah. We need to hardwire our neighborhoods, except enough to leave the cell phone towers. And that, well, what I do know from scientists, and this goes back a long time, we don't need to have those towers as powerful as they are either. Back many years ago, I was told we only need like 1/10 of the power that they were being put out at. And so there's that, and we need to hardwire our home. If it all, our printers are one of the worst things in terms I've measured. This whole idea of the Internet of Things wirelessly, it makes no sense. Everything should be hardwired. And so we need to get smart and
I,
and
I turned on, I usually don't, I turn all the antennas off of my phone that I can. And the other day I popped off, I was looking at Wi-Fi and I went, what's this LG? And I'm going like, what? My washing machine has got Bluetooth or Wi-Fi on it or Bluetooth, one of the two. I don't remember which. It was like, why do I need that? I don't want that. And how do I turn it off? I don't know how to turn it off.
Yeah, it's just crazy. They're putting it in televisions too. You buy a new
I
television
know.
and people are getting sick and they don't know why. That you actually can shield. If you know it's happening, you can shield with shielding material. That's what people are doing. But no, it's insane. We've been people think that there's a big brother out there that's looking out for our health and that these products wouldn't be on the market if there was a problem with it. So we've been deceived
Very
that
badly.
we're believing the false claims that of safety, and our local governments have been believing the false claims that this is safe as well. And the other false claim is that this wireless will close the digital divide, which really couldn't be further from the truth. It's the hardwiring, fiber to the premises, can close the digital divide.
Okay,
So
tell me this. I've said this to we have a broadband task commission here that got Little put together about 6 years ago. And I've said to them over and over, if in 1936, 33, 36, whenever, we could wire every home in America with electricity in a very short time, why can't we put hardwire down the same poles to everyone's home just as quickly today, especially with all the types of equipment we have? And I
yeah,
never get an answer.
it's expensive. It's that it costs money initially, but the benefit is that it's enduring technology, and fiber is the backbone of in this country. So, but we need fiber not just to a cell tower that's then going to radiate our neighborhood. We need fiber all the way to the home, and that they'd rather not have to pay. It's cheaper to do wirelessly, but and then they've built in planned obsolescence to the technology, so it has to keep being upgraded.
Right.
Whereas even the former head of the FCC, Tom Wheeler, has said we need future-proof technology. We need enduring technology. And most of America should be hardwired. And it should be the rare occasion where wireless is necessary. He said this after he left the SEC in testimony to Congress.
Wow.
Yeah. And it should be
Well,
paid for once. Paid
exactly. Like
for
the
once.
engineers we've talked to, we've interviewed some engineers here in Southern Idaho, and they've told us, look, this stuff will last 50 to 100 years easily, but these cell towers, they're replacing that equipment every 3 to 5 years.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's crazy. And so it needs to be installed once, be enduring technology, paid for once, and that's that, We're just do we've been told that an inferior technology, wireless, is a superior technology, and we've been lied to.
I
It's
took a
fiber isn't
resolution.
superior. It's fiber is always going to be superior to wireless because wireless is a shared medium. And fiber is always going to be faster, it's safer, it's more secure. We published a paper in 2018 written by Tim Sheckley called Reinventing Wires, explaining the history of how we came to champion an inferior technology, wireless, instead and explain from mostly technological reasons, in addition to the health reasons, there are at least 20 technological reasons why hardwiring is superior. If even irrespective of the health issues, you've got safety, security, energy efficiency, privacy. There are all kinds of issues. You could look at that paper, Reinventing Wires, the Future
Oh,
of.
you're telling me energy. It's so what we've been probably saying the wrong things because our local liberal mayor believes that we're more green if we have these cell towers, but that's not the truth. Obviously, having it
Not
hardwired,
true.
yeah,
Not true. Totally false.
we got to get a better marketing campaign here.
Yeah.
Go
Yeah.
green, go wire.
Yeah. Yeah. There are some good
Doge
articles
the
out
cell
on it.
towers.
Yeah, I mean, have you seen the paper Reinventing Wires? I can
No,
send
I
it
wrote
to
it
you.
down though.
Okay,
Reinventing
good.
wireless. Yes, I haven't seen that. No.
Okay.
If you have a link to it, send it to me. And
I will.
if you're listening to the show, whether the radio or the podcast, go to the podcast, Whole Body Detox Show, links at livingwaterscleanse.com as well. And I'll put all the show notes, all these different great things that Camilla is sharing with us, and you'll have that there. Wow.
Very important to realize that on technological grounds, that we don't just have health reasons, although health reasons are important in and of themselves, and so are all of the other technological reasons individually enough to make the case that we should be hardwiring. So, we need to argue it on technological grounds.
Okay, I've got something here. Go green, go hard. Anyway, go hardwired, right? We just had a Supreme Court case. There's a couple in, I think, Idaho Falls. They had a smart meter and it was causing them harm. I remember talking to him about 4 years ago, and I really had no answers for them, but they took it all the way to Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court told them, too bad, so sad. You got to, the utilities overrule.
What grounds did they say that?
I'd have to go back and read it. It just happened 2 weeks ago.
Hmm.
I did not, I just saw that they lost. That's all I know.
Hmm. Well, it could come back to those exposure guidelines, the fraudulent, non-protective exposure guidelines that only aim to protect against the thermal effects of this radiation. And they don't even aim to protect against all of the effects of the radiation, including the non-heating effects, including the pulsations, the frequencies, the increasingly complex signaling characteristics that have biological effects. So they only aim to protect against the heating effects, like from a microwave oven. Everyone agrees that there are biological effects if it's hot enough to heat tissue. But the exposure guidelines don't, they just completely ignore the non-heating effects that are some consider even more biologically destructive. So we need to change the exposure guidelines.
Mhm.
And we need to restore local community rights over this kind of infrastructure.
In order
This,
to change exposure guidelines, do we have to completely get rid of 704?
they're parallel, they're two things. One is the FCC exposure guidelines that need to be changed at that level or need to be allocated, responsibility allocated to somebody else. That
Mhm.
the FCC doesn't have biological expertise. They have said that they rely on the FDA, but the FDA has never done a comprehensive review of the science on the wireless radiation like they do on other things, like they review drugs or they look at medical equipment, MRI machines and that sort of thing. They have never done a thorough review of the RF risks. And so that's going to happen. That's got to happen at the federal level. And the Section 704 issue relates to the Telecom Act of 1996 that needs to be changed. And so, if we need both. We need the local rights restored, and we need truth telling and reestablishing exposure guidelines that have integrity, that are truly protective.
The marketing has just been so great. I watched some great podcasters. Jordan Peterson, I saw he had the little Apple earbuds in his ear the other day doing a podcast. I'm going, oh no, not you. You've been taken over. We all did. I mean, I bought Bluetooth a long time ago, and then once I figured out what was going on 5 years ago, I doged those. My favorite new word, doged them. But everyone I see in the store, I say, ma'am, may I make a suggestion? You've got
Yeah,
three
I
cell
feel
phones
so
on.
sorry for those people that work in like the big box stores that have to walk around all day with the wireless earbuds in their ear. I mean, this is terrible. This is terrible. Or the people that have to carry a radio on their belt.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's
It makes sense.
earbuds are terrible. You got to have a hard, if you use a headset, it needs to be hardwired and ideally a plastic tube. They call them air tubes
Right.
that the radiation doesn't travel up the wire. But people are making, I don't use a headset. I don't even have a phone, but I do have an iPad that when I'm traveling and I use it on speaker and I put it far away from my body. And that's what people should do if they need to use it.
Yeah. Yeah, the new phone, I kept my 10 for as long as I could hang on to it, but it finally went defunct, and I have a 15, and I can only hold it in my hand for a short period of time.
Yeah, I'm the same. I really get dizzy
You get
from it.
dizzy. I can just feel it. I can just feel it in my hand that it's, oh my gosh, it's not good. It's ironic. My father-in-law, he was civil service. He worked on these big towers and put the first cable
Really?
system in Twin Falls, Idaho, back in the 1960s. But he traveled around the US working on these things, but they believed that all this was safe. So you're telling me the Navy and the Air Force and so forth did studies, but obviously they did not share it with their people that were
Well,
working in the field because my
right?
mother-in-law, my father-in-law, all microwaves are plenty safe.
Yeah, just like the industry tells the telecom industry tells their shareholders in their SEC filings, their 10K reports, that there are risks and they may experience tremendous liability, and financial consequences down the road, but they don't tell the people that they're marketing their products to. But I want to point out this paper. I don't know if you can see it, The
Yep.
Safety of Wireless Technologies
Right.
Scientific View. I co-authored this, came out about 2 months ago, and it featured, among other things, it featured that Navy study, and it showed that the diseases that they had identified back in 1971 had become today's chronic illnesses. 23 of the fastest growing chronic illnesses today were identified by the Navy. So I went and we published this report, and I took it down to Congress a couple of weeks ago. I don't know if you can see it.
Yeah, safety of wireless technology. Is this on the 704 no more?
No, this came out about the same time, a little bit before the 704 was announced. But we'd been working on this for a while. But I think that it's totally right for the times because of today's interest in chronic illness. And I mean, there are certainly many other things that are driving the chronic illness problem. No question about it. But this report really shows that the electromagnetic field issue has had a substantial impact driving chronic illness that nobody can deny. So it's, while we talk about food additives and farming practices and, vaccines and things, we really can't forget this wireless issue is a major driver of the chronic illness problem.
I'm going, if I can find someone to sponsor the bill, I want to bring a bill that puts a bans the installation of any more cell towers until they've been proven safe.
Yeah, and that's one of the problems okay, so the two core issues, as I said, were the exposure guidelines and Section 704. But beyond that, we need to have pre-market testing, post-market assessments. We need the government to take responsibility. If they're going to do anything to help us decide which technologies we should choose. Give us full information, informed consent, so we can decide, oh, I'm going to buy that printer for my office that's hardwired. I'm not going to buy the wireless one. We need them to explain the options and to do the pre-market testing and post-market testing, and not only the post-market testing on humans, but also on the ecosystem effects, which are just as important that few people understand what is happening to the pollinators, the insects, the foundation of our ecosystem.
Well, talk to me about that. The pollinators. I remember Dr. Paul vividly. I mean, for me, it was like a big aha moment speaking about the pollinator. I mean, we're in farm country, right? We've got hundreds of thousands of acres of. We're the most diverse state of various crops, from seed crops, corn, potatoes, onions, you name it, we grow it here. And we need those. We need bees. We need pollinators. And
Yeah,
I remember him telling me. He says, "David, I drove across Eastern Washington this summer, and there wasn't any bugs on my windshield." I says, "God, I recognize that too. I didn't understand why driving from Twin Falls to Boise there wasn't very many bugs on the windshield like there normally is."
that's interesting. Well, there's no question there are other things also affecting the pollinators, like the neonicotinoids chemicals. And so I'm not trying to say that the EMFs are the only
Right.
factor, but there is a great risk from the electromagnetic fields. And I don't know how much research has been done on this, but I can tell you from personal experience, there is a synergistic effect between chemicals and electromagnetic fields. And I've seen this in human exposures, where people can handle the electromagnetic fields, but not when they bring in those new plastic off-gassing file folders they just bought at Staples, because it seems to make it, or the exercise ball that's plastic. I've seen this, and I know some people have talked about it, and there just needs to be more investigation of it, of the interaction.
Well, I mean, and not only that, but what about the glyphosate and the atrazine that are spraying on the crops? I mean, there's
Yeah,
definitely a correlation. I never thought about some of those plastic things.
yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I remember reading Stephanie Seneff's book on the glyphosate, and she thinks that is the main worst offender right now.
Well, North Dakota just proved no liability to bear by
Oh,
spraying.
really?
They just passed it 2 weeks ago.
Really?
They tried to pass it in Idaho 2 years ago, failed by 3 votes. They brought 3 different bills. Bear bought theirs. Chem China brought their bill. They tried 3, and this year didn't even get out of the drawer. They advertised heavily though. Farmers need their tools that Bear provides to bring you wholesome food. Yeah.
Well, what's encouraging is the growth and interest in the emerging field of regenerative agriculture.
Yeah.
And the understanding, the real attention being paid to the health of the soil and the soil microbiome. And it is been a little bit involved in some initiatives that in that space. And it is very exciting to see the great amount of interest in
Yeah.
healthy agriculture.
Have you seen Carbon Cowboys?
No, should I see that?
Yes, go to YouTube. Carbon Cowboys. It's a documentary series. They go around the U.S. Something like I don't know how many different farmers, and they tell their story of how they switched to regenerative agriculture, and now they're straight from farm to table. We got Joe Salatin. You probably heard of him,
Yeah.
and he's been on a lot of podcasts. And of course, he's got his story, and that's over on. I don't know if it's on Netflix. It's on. I watched it on. Is it Heritage? Anyway, Joe, the lunatic farmer. Look that up, folks. I'll find the link to that. I'll put it in the show notes. The lunatic farmer, Joe Salatin, who's written many books on regenerative farming. I'm going to have some more people on the show. I had King's Crown Organics on the show here last winter. Back in December, I'll put that link. They've been doing it since the 1970s.
Mm-hmm.
He started farming with his dad. It was just, he says, David, I didn't know any difference. I just started doing organic and been doing it the whole time. And in talking with Camilla Rees of 704nomore.org. And as you guys know, if you've been listening to my show for the last 5 years, I've done several interviews about the harmful effects of EMF radiation. And as we mentioned earlier, this is the only industry that cannot be sued for causing you harm. So if you get a cell tower that shows up in your driveway or on your back of your property that's beaming into your house, there's nothing, you can't escape it. So it's going to take the grassroots. Go join 704 No More, peruse it, go over and look at the information over there. It's going to take a grassroots effort. We got more information also on Idahoans for safetechnology.org or ifst.us, ifst.us. You'll see Hank's story about how he has been harmed and injured. And there's lots of you probably have got headaches and AFib, migraines, and some of you may not know where it's coming from. Take a look and do a antennasearch.com and see how many antennas are beaming at your house. We got to make this change. I'll be back in a moment. Stay tuned.
Once in a lifetime, a healing tool comes across your path that can really change the ability for the body to heal naturally and quickly. We have found such a tool, and it has changed the way my family lives and how our clients at Living Waters are helping to heal their body. It's called phototherapy, and phototherapy is the ability of your body using waves of light to turn on your body's ability to make its own stem cells. No surgeries, just simply a little Band-Aid sized patch that can activate your body to make stem cells. As you age, you're producing less and less stem cells, and by age 60, you're making none. So when it comes to healing and repairing, it is a long, long process. We can now speed that process up by using phototherapy. Go over to stemcellpatch.net and watch the videos there. And go ahead and try these patches for a few months. These patches have helped so many of our clients reverse pain, help speed up the healing, sleep better, and on and on. You'll see some of the testimonials over there. It's an amazing little tool that you should be using right now. For less than the cost of a cup of coffee per day, you can now be increasing your body's ability to make the stem cells on its own. Stemcellpatch.net or call the office at 208-3789-911.
Nothing is more exciting than seeing a client shed their diseases and symptoms caused from accumulated toxins from the chemicals in our foods, the clothes we wear, and the air we breathe. and by cleansing through colon hydrotherapy and treating the whole body naturally. Here's what a few clients had to say about their experience at Living Waters Wellness Center.
My name's Richard. I come to Living Waters because I was low on energy and for my memory, and I've accomplished both. Living Waters did it for me. Thank you, Living Waters.
My name's Peg. I came to Living Waters about a year ago, so I run pretty hard when I'm working. But through this retreat, I think one of the biggest things that I've gained is that self-confidence. Thank you, Living Waters.
Hi, my name is Anna Lewis, and I came to do the 10-day cleanse because I hadn't been feeling really well, and so I could cleanse, get rid of parasites and toxins in my body, and those were great help. So thank you, Living Waters.
To learn more about the 10-day healing retreat, go to livingwaterscleanse.com, click on the link for Natural Laws of Healing, and watch the video and check out this hundreds of clients who healed from their symptoms under the Success Stories tab, or call the office at 208-3789-911. That's 208-3789-911. The preceding examples may not be typical of your experience, may not be right for you. Talk to a healthcare professional and see if cleansing is right for you. You're joining us. We've been talking with Camilla Rees of 704nomore.org, talking about the harmful effects of cell towers and what you can do to protect yourself. That's join this organization or join the cause. You can also have more information at ifst.us. That's Idahoans for Safe Technology. Listening parts of the show, catch the whole entire show, which this one goes into overtime, at wholebodydetoxshow.com. Links at livingwaterscleanse.com. And if you want to just give us a call, 208-3789-911.
My friend who's a doctor has been on his property. I have not. He says, David, that they've got so much moisture in that soil. He says it's spongy. It's just such a different soil than his neighbors.
That's great. Well, one thing that people are not yet aware of that is really critical is the impact of the radio frequency radiation on water. And I have been working with a former head of telecom R&D in Europe that's been studying the effects and showing that we're meant to have an orchestra of communication going on nonstop between water molecules in our bodies, in the soil, in the trees, between everything in the ecosystem. There is an invisible orchestra that he's documented, and that the electromagnetic fields as well as the chemicals disrupt. And then he has figured out how to restore it to that communicating state. And when that restored water is used in agriculture, it captures like 60% more carbon. The plants are far more nutrient value than even organic food. That all can be measured. I've seen the science on this. And the big risk is that we're putting up all these satellites in the sky, thousands of satellites. Yeah. Now they're maybe close to 10,000, up from about 4,500 a couple of years ago, and they're going up into hundreds of thousands of satellites. Satellites are impacting the clouds and the water and the rainwater that rains down on crops. And we may not have the energy, as we add more satellites, may not have the energy to support healthy soil microbiome. So it is just crazy what we're doing up there in the sky with the, transmitting wireless from space and all the weapons.
What's the name? What is that, a published paper or is that a book?
No, I can tell you more about it, but it's not. No, we tried to get a study done in the US on it that I think might have been sabotaged. We had a university president signed off on it, ready to go, because I feel that we need the published research. They've been working on this for, about 18 years in Europe, and they've had a lot of the evidence validated by different universities over there, but they haven't publicly published yet. So I want to see that happen, but it's critically important to us as humans, but also to the planet and to
we're water. We're 80% water or 90% when we're born. When we die, we're about 60%. So it makes perfect sense. I've watched, different plant studies with energy and frequency. And so it makes all total sense that we need this orchestra, as you call it. I love that word, that orchestra of energy, of molecules.
Communication.
Communicating in the cells. That makes perfect sense to me. And over the years, I remember I'm the guy that, I don't know, I've always been kind of ahead on technology. I mean, I was selling satellite dishes in 1981, but anytime something comes before me, I buy it. and little devices that will help make water, more absorbable in the body,
Uh-huh.
for example. I mean, just all these little things. So that makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, it's
And look what's
it's
happening in the
important.
ocean with the windmills. What it's
Yeah, the
doing to the
windmill.
whales. I mean, that again, that's a disruptor. And yeah,
Yeah.
we got to become a little more smarter as human beings before we.
Well, I think there's a connection between the EMFs that are affecting us, our biology, that's taking energy, depleting energy, because we don't have that robust communication going on, and it's also creating instability
Yeah,
in biological systems. So here, in a way, the inside of our bodies reflects the outside reflects the inside.
yeah.
I think that we are being so dysregulated that
Oh, there's no doubt.
we are not thinking straight. We don't, we're, you know, we're messed up. And
Thank you.
we're supposed to be harmoniously operating, like in nature. Nature's supposed to be harmoniously interconnected, and we are a part of that. And things are supposed to be in peace. We need to understand that peace in the world, it happens one person at a time. No treaty is going to create peace.
No.
It'll just be a temporary band-aid. Peace comes from harmony, from happiness, from balance, from, vitality, and we're just all dysregulated.
Yeah, just yeah, we are. I've been saying this for a long time because what I've observed just naturally here at Living Waters Wellness Center, we do a 10-day heating retreat. So we're doing colon hydrotherapy every day, lots of water. We're talking to them about mitigating and putting devices on their phones and turning off their Wi-Fi at night. We're talking about all these different things to them. We're getting rid of the chemicals out of the body. They've been addicted to the chemicals. It's any addiction, whether it's cigarettes or Skittles, it's a emotional chemical addiction. And when they break free of that and get rid of that, you see in 10 days, you see an amazing change, a calmness, a peacefulness come over people. And they start, as one gal come in, she was 19 years of age, says, David, I can now think. And I truly believe the combination of the chemicals, the dyes, all this stuff that we know causes harm, ADHD and so forth, and we get all of those things, all these chemicals are spraying our crops. You combine that with the electromagnetic fields, I have no doubt it's making us. I mean, you're just watching it in real time. I mean, didn't see this craziness 40 years ago. We didn't
Yeah.
see this.
People don't realize the power that the role of diet in health, and they hear about it, but it's only when you do something like that, when you go to radical change, all organic food, even raw food, where you can see the difference. I've experienced it myself because I do these sorts of things regularly. You see the incredible power that healthy food and healthy environments has on your well-being. And
Yeah,
you sometimes just experiencing it once is enough to wake people up. And I hope that these sort of programs like what you run are encouraged in
yeah.
the new
Well, I've
world.
had people here. I remember there's been a couple of ladies that came through and they're in their 70s and they went through the 10-day and they had the regular physical issues, their joints hurt and so forth. But the key thing they said to me afterwards, coming here for 10 days, cleaning out the toxins, learning about all this stuff, their thinking changed so much. They both said to me, and they were on two different cleanses. I now get the connection between me and God. I feel connected to everything.
That's wonderful.
And I'm looking at them going like, that's awesome. How do you
Yeah.
think that happened? He goes, I don't know. But I mean, I know because they get rid of the toxins, they slow down, we get good food, get away from the hustle and bustle and all the crazy Wi-Fi and all those things. And you're a different person.
Yeah. And I think that we need a consciousness change in
Big
this
time.
world. We need leadership that is coming from a place of understanding that interconnectedness of everything. And that is really the key to transforming the world, is for people to gain that realization. of the interconnectedness of everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
People are
hard
buying grounding
to
mat. It's kind of
understand.
hilarious. They got their Wi-Fi going and they're buying grounding mats to put on their bed.
Yeah,
It's kind of like, okay, well, why don't we turn off, get the cell
but
phone away
it
from the
does
hand?
help. I have to say, when I travel and have to stay in a hotel, I actually use one of those if I'm in a hotel that has a wireless. It helps a little bit to build your resilience.
I was down at the State House about 4 weeks ago, trying to get this H-180 stopped, and I had a meter, a Sound Pro 2 meter, and Representative Heather Scott was there in that meeting. I popped it on, and in that meeting, in that room, in the basement, it was 100,000 micro
Watts
per
per meter
square meter.
squared.
And Heather goes, "Oh my God!" She says, "Well, what's safe?" I says, "Maybe 10." And then I talked to another legislator, and she says, "David, I'm down there 15 hours. That downtown Boise being the capital," she says, "I am got so much brain fog. I come home, I'm so exhausted from all. I mean, they're down there poisoning themselves right
Yes,
there in the
yes,
State
it
House."
makes sense. So, well, we're trying to round people up who have learned about this issue, care about this issue, want to help educate about, minimizing these exposures, and in particular, getting people to help out with this new 704 No More effort. I actually have an image to show you. I don't know if you've seen this. Can you see this?
That's not coming through.
Can't see
Is,
it.
is
Well,
that one on your
I can
website?
send it to you. I'll send it to you.
Okay, I'll put a link
It's
to it.
lots of antennas, and we're seeing them on buildings,
Oh, it's horrible.
standing on water towers. In New York City, they've got these new jumbo antennas that have 5 tiers of antennas right on the sidewalks outside of people's
Ugh,
uh, homes, and there are thousands of them that they plan to go up. There's some resistance, but we'll see what happens there. But it's like every time I walk down the street in New York and I see a 5-story building with the antennas on top or on along the side,
yeah.
I just think I want to knock on their door and say, "Are you okay?" I've been to measure many buildings in New York where people have died, where there were antennas right outside their living room where they did their writing, and like on the side edge of the building and on top of the building, people are dying, and people are not the dots are not being well connected. We have to bound to get, come together around this issue and unify and we need millions of people to get on the right side of this issue, to get educated enough so that they take a stand, because we can create the change together. We can't do it alone. We need
Yeah.
everybody.
So we've got a little website, Idahoans for Safe Technology.org.
Mhm.
Let's see, Idahoans. So ifst.us, if you're listeners, sign up for our newsletter. And then, Camellia, how do they reach out to you?
You could do it through Manhattan Neighbors .org. It's Camilla at manhattanneighbors.org.
All right, I'm gonna write that down. I'll put that link in the show
And
notes as well.
And if there are groups out there, other groups, environmental groups, medical groups, EMF groups that want to sign on to endorse Section 704, we've got about almost 90 now. They can email me as well,
Okay.
and send me a logo, and we welcome everyone. If
Okay.
they'd like to be involved in the committee, if they
So
have
what's our
spare
marching
time.
orders? Do we call our congressman tomorrow and say, let's get rid of you? You're saying that this is unconstitutional. On the website
Right.
says it's unconstitutional. Let's talk about that. What parts of the Constitution does this violate?
Well, there's several sections of the Constitution, and it's in a document that is posted on 704nomore.org. It's a one-page sort of statement that's
Right.
got all these towers on the front, and what you can do at the local level is, first we're trying to build up create the content, the collateral, the flyers, the postcards. All of that is being worked on right now, where people at the local level can help to share, to educate people. We have just sent out an email this morning, I think, that said that is inviting people to serve on committees. And one of those was a litigation committee. There's a fundraising committee, which I had. There's a legislative action committee, and then there's a strategic communications. And so we welcome people. It's all in development right now.
Okay.
But we plan to give lots of guidance to the local communities of what they can do and what steps they can take. I'd also like to have at some point, once we get some real funding into the litigation part, which is what needs to happen first, then I want to do an auction. I want to do an auction. So if there are people out there in Idaho that would like to, donate a cabin by some nice river, we're going to pull together underutilized assets that people have and try to auction. My friend did this in California, and he raised a couple $100,000 in just 2 weeks. And so, but it takes time to build that up. So Idaho vacations would be a nice thing on that list.
Awesome. I just thought of a gal I need to reach out to who is really big behind this kind of, she would know all the things here in Idaho too. And she does this for a lot of nonprofits. She teaches how to form nonprofits. So, okay, that's great. So yes, if you go to 704 no more, you'll see here constitutional violation, 5th and 7th Amendments, 9th and 10th, and the Commerce Clause. A lot.
Yep. So yeah, it's got to be a multi-pronged effort, not just the litigation, but I think the working through Congress is also really important and the local levels. So it's just information at this point. And I'm on the communications committee and I'm going to be leading the fundraising for it. We need to raise, about 500,000 for 3 years to support litigation. And there is a very renowned constitutional lawyer who is waiting in the wings to be hired to work with Scott McCullough. And so we got to really come together and bring all the brains together. I've talked to a lot of people and people have some different ideas of like how, the local level could get involved or what would be. And we've just got to bring, I believe in multiple points of view. We need to hear everybody's ideas and honor them. And through all of them comes a clear path that can work for everybody. And so Scott has thought it all out on terms of the litigation, but we are open to ideas. And
well, we need everybody. I mean, we need that grassroots. I mean, Scott very clearly said to Hank Allen, Hank, it's up to the grassroots now. We have nothing left. This is it. We got to get to grassroots. So I'm very appreciative of 704nomore.org and to collectively get these groups working together. And if you're listening to this radio show, you know where I'm at, Living Waters Wellness Center. You guys know how to get a hold of me. 208-378-9911 and Idahoans for Safe Technology.org or ifst.us. Either one of those will get you there. Go look at this website. We need some talents. And look, it doesn't, a lot of hands doing a little bit really goes a lot further than, one or two people trying to pull the whole load. And that's, we need those. We need everyone playing a part, whether it's, going and volunteering to throw a banner up over the interstate. Like I watched, are you familiar with Josh Coleman?
Mm-mm.
B is for vaccine.
Mm-mm.
Oh my gosh, talk about a grassroots organization. I mean, he put big banners on freeways. He'd hung them above the freeways up and down all over the country.
Really?
And he's eventually got people in 50 states doing it.
Really?
Oh yeah. Vaccines cause harm. I mean, all these. So I've told Hank, I says, I want to take what little money we have and make a banner. It says cell towers cause harm.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. I'd like to see bumper stickers, as well. And there is merchandise now on the Children's Health Defense site where you can get a 704 No More hat or a t-shirt or,
oh, great.
So, and the more that people are out there talking about this and doing things like that, the more media attention it's going to get. And, we need to be able to ramp up the media attention. So I greatly appreciate your having this program today and all the work you've done before that. It's we need to it needs to become something that the journalists want to cover, that they realize but it is coming up as an issue. It's going to be getting more attention. It's been, we need it to get in the mainstream news.
Yeah.
And I totally believe it's going to be in the mainstream news more. It has been, but it's over time, but we need it lots more.
We've reached out in 2020. We reached out to all the local papers. They ignored us. I've written articles, which I'm, got on my blog for Living Waters and also in the Hedra magazine, a little health magazine here. So, I mean, there's all little seeds. We got to keep planting the seeds, but definitely, I mean, when People have been so used to carrying these phones in their pockets. I saw a mother the other day and she had it stuffed in her bra, and I says, "Okay, I can't pass this up. I don't know you, but may I offer one great suggestion?" She goes, "What?" I said, "Well, if you don't want to have those breasts cut off of you in the coming future, turn that cell phone off and don't put it on your breasts."
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
I turn myself, when I put myself in my pocket, it's off.
And now they make clothing that has a pocket, like exercise pants that have as a pocket for the cell phone. You know, it shouldn't be against our body anywhere. It
I
should
saw,
be unless
yeah,
it's turned off. Even on airplane mode, it's still transmitting
it
more
does.
recently. It wasn't originally,
I
but
know.
it is now in the phones.
I just discovered that. Yeah. We went down to the Ada County Commissioner's office about 4 years ago with our building biologist, and we measured. They have two things there. They have a substation, electrical substation, not more than 15 feet behind the building, and where the commissioner's offices and the treasurer and the county clerks, right there, the windows right against it. And we measured the cell tower. There's a cell tower right next to it. We measured the parking lot. We measured in their offices. And this one guy asked a question. He says, "I've been here 10 years up against this window, 20 feet from this electrical substation." And Kathy measured it. And it was like 1,000-fold greater than what would be safe. He says, "Well, what does that mean?" And I told Kathy, I says, "I don't think you really drilled into his head what that means." She says, "Well, it's kind of like smoking. You're probably good for the first 20, 25 years. And then who knows?"
Yeah. Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, some people are react to the acute effects, you know,
Right.
they react. And then there are other people that eventually react to the chronic effects of sitting near a router or whatever. And then there are people who get the devastating illnesses down the road because of all this dysregulation in their body and also related to the cumulative effects and the aggregate effects. You
Yeah.
know, they might be putting up a cell tower, but they haven't counted, well, what are the exposures that people are getting, not only from that cell tower, but the one down the road and all the other devices in our lives that increasingly are emitting this radiation. And it's just as Dr. What's her name out in San Diego, Beatrice Gollum, who heads the Gollum Research Institute at UC San Diego, has said in a letter to the governor of California at the time that with each new generation of technology and all these new additive exposures, we get the ranks of the people that are harmed gets larger and larger. I mean, the surveys show that like 3% of the population are severely harmed, affected, 35% mildly. That would be like people who get a little headache and when they put the cell phone against the head, so they stop doing that. But even 3%, which I think is a much higher number now, 3% of a population of 330 million people, that is a lot. That is millions of people.
Yeah.
And 35% is major, over 100 million. So, we need to look at the macro picture here too, not just, oh, that person's sensitive. Well, but who else has gotten sensitive? People increasingly get more sensitive over time, and it's a shame.
Well, especially you got young ladies. I mean, okay, you're packing around the eggs in your body, hoping to one day conceive a baby.
Yeah.
Now you've been this poor generation since 1996 with the glyphosate added to the wheat fields and all this stuff, and now the horrible food they eat, and then you start packing wireless around.
Yeah. There's a lot of research on the
Oof.
fertility effects,
Yeah.
fertility and reproductive effects. That's one of the areas where there is a lot of research showing the effects on
And then they start arguing for
vitality. I'm sorry?
they start arguing for we need more fertility centers. We need to be able to do this in vitro fertilization. No, let's get rid of why is that a
Yeah.
problem? No one's asking why all of a sudden is that a big problem. It wasn't a problem
Yeah.
like that in the 60s, the 50s.
Yeah. Yeah. And then there are the people that say, well, it's a good thing, right? And we have too many people.
I know there is
That's
yes,
crazy.
yes, I have very close people in my family who believe that.
Yeah. As Martin Paul has said, we are destroying like the most important things to us, our brain function, our fertility, our ability to procreate. And what is the third thing? I can't remember what the third thing is, but we are turning over, he also says we are turning over our brain function, we're destroying it and turning over our brain to AI.
Yeah.
Then it's in the interest of expand. That's one of the reasons why there are all these antennas, is to support the surveillance state and the data capture of everything related to our lives. It's so offensive, really, the privacy violations and the manipulation. And AI can have some good purposes, that's for sure. But we have to really look at what we're doing and what the trade-off is in terms of the effects from all this radiation
Yeah.
to AI, effects on our brain.
Yeah. Yeah. And we don't have the critical thinking because of that. So you combine like the
That's
chemistry,
right.
like you're talking, this is a huge chemical experiment, and it's not working out well for us. And I'm thankful for you guys being one of the alarm centers. Very appreciative.
I like that name, the
Yes,
alarms.
Children's Health Defense Fund and all the other people that are working in this environment. I remember talking to Kent Chamberlain. I'm sure you know him, right?
Sure.
And this was in 2000. This is in 2021, and he says, David, I worked on these towers. I didn't think it was any big deal until New Hampshire governor said, "Hey, let's look at these studies." What studies?
Yeah, he's a good guy. He looked at it with the rest of that commission. They took 2 years. They studied the research, and now he's stepped out onto the right side of the issue and is supporting education. He was shocked. Why? Because, with his engineering background, they are told that there's no risk unless the radiation heats the tissue,
Yeah.
unless it has the thermal effects. And same with the people in the FCC. That's what they've been trained to believe in as physicists and engineers. And it may be true in materials science, right? It may be true with materials, metals and things, but it is not true with human biology.
Well, our physicist, I call him our physicist, the guy who volunteers and testifies from time to time, like he says, who is monitoring the power output? Who is monitoring the safety of these things? No one. You don't do that when you put up buildings, even a house, a basic house. You have inspectors. No one's inspecting this stuff.
That's right. And
now
there's
you
a
got
big risk in that too, because who's got the controls? Who could simply turn up the power and we wouldn't know it,
They've already talked about it here. I called the commissioner. This is about 3 years ago. Hank went to a meeting. There's a kind of a quasi unelected government group, and they were talking about how great it would be. We can have control. They actually talked about this. We got this. We can actually control. If people get out of control, we can start flashing these LED lights, and we can control the population. If they get out of control, it's just, yeah, we need this stuff. We need more of this. It's like, are you guys just insane?
Yeah, like communist China, monitor everything, social credit scores, behave or you're in trouble. You won't be able to buy a train ticket.
Well, and the problem is as they've dumbed us down very slowly. First, it's the chemicals in the food, they're spraying on the property. And then we use the microwave energy. We got the plastics. We're going to Starbucks. We're getting 15,000 little microplastics every drink we have. And now our brains are 0.5% plastic. All these things have a little bit of an effect. And then you see us arguing. We just had a big, the mayor here, the state lawmakers passed a law that said the only flags you can fly is a city flag, United States flag, an ancestral, it was a native Indian flag or something. Anyway, 3 flags basically, but there was no teeth to the bill. Well, the mayor's been flying a pride flag for 10 years, and she decided she's not taking down the flag. And so last night they had a council meeting to approve that the pride flag is an official city flag. Now I look at that, and my observation is this is not about LGBTQ. The problem we even have the flag is because what happened in 1996? We began spraying glyphosate on the crops. What does that cause? Gender dysphoria, according to Dr. Don Huber, who's a glyphosate expert. Now we're spraying astrazines. What does that do? That causes infertility, causes male frogs to fully transition to female frogs. So I totally get these people think they should be something else. The root cause, though, is what we're doing to our food chain. And now they're arguing over a flag and what it represents. No, to me, it represents we've poisoned ourselves, and we've poisoned ourselves now to where we cannot clearly think.
So we need leadership. We need the consciousness raising, awakening, awareness rate increasing in people that have the power to lead people. That's why I am extremely interested in getting our paper showing the connection with the chronic illness, EMFs with the chronic illness problem, getting it to corporate CEOs. And I remember years ago I did a white paper on healthcare reform back in 1993 when I was working for an investment bank. And we had a lot of business in the healthcare field. So and then people were confused about all the programs out on, the proposals for healthcare reform being put out there. And so we did a paper explaining where everybody stood from left to right, what everyone was suggesting. And we didn't want anything. We just wanted to share it. And we sent it to thousands of CEOs, well-screened companies that were successful. And I have a box still of almost 1,000 letters that we got back from CEOs of companies saying, "Thank you so much for explaining this to us. We had no idea. How can we help?" Well, and so we weren't really interested in taking it further. We wanted to motivate them to become engaged. But I feel the same thing is possible here to get people on our side, leaders, religious leaders as well, corporate leaders, not just people who are in the political world that have their political issues that are influencing them, but we need leadership and to be able to lead us out of this disaster of an environment that we've created for human life. And it's starting to happen. I'm involved with the John Fullerton's community focused on regenerative economics and regenerative finance. And there are other groups as well that are educating, that are empowering people to look at the big picture and take leadership and take steps to serve the world
You
because it's
know,
so bad.
I think you've got a great idea there. We've had people that have came in here that we finally says, well, what else? Where do you work? Where do you live? What's around you? And we've told them you need to change jobs or work at home because you're in a building that's toxic. You've got all this EMFs around you. This is what's causing you to be sick. Those employers need a wake up call because how much is it decreasing productivity and raising the
Exactly.
effective cost rate of their product they're producing because their employees cannot think clearly?
Yeah. So the self-insured companies are going to be the most interested because they
Mm,
pay every dollar of their healthcare costs. So
yeah.
companies like Ford Motor, GM, the ones that have millions of employees and choose to self-insure. Yeah, I actually personally was affected by an office building
Uh-huh.
that was they renovated and the formaldehyde off gassing from the carpets and the new cabinets
Yep. Oh
was
yeah.
just debilitating.
Yeah, we talk about that on the 10-day retreat. We go out all this stuff. We give our poor folks come through. We open it, expose them to all this stuff. It's a little overwhelming, obviously, right? But I think you've hit upon something. So the low-hanging fruit, in order to get them on our side, is going to be these big corporations.
I think so.
Yeah. So Simplot, probably Micron here in Boise, maybe an Idaho Power. That'd be interesting.
A power company, I wouldn't think would be a good target because they have
Well,
their
they're
own
not, they're gonna,
electromagnetic field issues.
yeah, they do. Yes, they do. And they know it. They've known it for years.
Mhm. But we need to write some kind of a white paper, something that is addressed to them, or even just a letter. I'm going to probably do a letter and I have had invitations to I've done put on a lot of programs across the country over the years. And I've had an invitation from a group out in Silicon Valley that's a lot of the business leaders out there attend. And they said, if you can put on a program focused on things that really matter to the CEOs, like the effects of the stress effects from this radiation, the productivity effects that you mentioned, the attention effects, the
Right.
age, this would be really powerful.
Yeah, I think that's the route we've got to go, is because that's affecting the bottom line because people are not thinking. I remember calling an employer. This poor gal was so sick. She did all the different stuff, spent thousands of dollars, but she had no more time off. So I called him and I says, "Look, you think you're spending $10 an hour on this lady? it's probably costing you 50. She had to cover up one eye to look at a computer screen. She couldn't even squeeze a remote. And so he did give her more time off, and we got her well and got rid of her vertigo and all the other issues. And now, and then he had a decent employee. But I think that's just, have we gotten so numb to all this? We just think that this is the standard of thinking has been devalued down about 50%.
Yeah, or we just judge people that claim they have these sort of problems, and they're not, they're just, inferior.
Yeah.
Wait till it happens to you, right? Or your child. That's when we
No,
start
I
a lot of
just,
people getting interested, is when they understand their children are being affected in schools by the routers and everybody on their equipment in the same room, and maybe the cell tower outside. That's the parents are another great target audience to
yeah.
educate.
Well, just a few blocks from me, about a mile actually. Bishop Kelly, a private school, what they put on their baseball field? Cell tower, 60 feet high.
Mm.
They've got one in a church lot across town. No, it's, they offer them 3 or 4,000 a month. That's good money.
Yeah, and it's really a shame when you see the churches putting the antennas in their steeple, and they're taking money.
Yeah.
And it's really just shocking. There was that movie, it was called Full Signal, one of the early movies on the EMF issue.
Yeah.
And there was a pastor minister in it from a church in New Jersey that said, well, we talked about it internally, and some people thought there were problems with it, but the industry told us that it was safe, and we figured it was putting an antenna in our steeple was consistent with our mission of like spreading light in the world. And I was like, oh my goodness
That's
gracious.
good marketing. That's great
Yeah.
marketing. Oh my gosh.
And then I heard that some of the churches in New York City had a contract with T-Mobile. I don't know if it's true, but had a contract to use their real estate. And so companies like Walmart or others that have a lot of real estate, they especially need to be warned about this.
Yeah. No, what's sad is we don't know what we don't know. What's worse is what we know that is not so. We just had a senator in Idaho. He works at INEL, and he called me because I was trying to stop this bill. Now, this is the ignorance of the people in this industry. And he got up, and I sent flyers out. I sent my podcast out. We did a special podcast at the radio show to all of them. And he got up and he says, well, if you've been in my office, I've got a special meter in there. I've actually got a certificate. I'm a radiation specialist, and there's no problem with this.
Mm.
Yeah, no, that's his belief. I think he's drank a little bit too much from the nuclear center down there in Arco, Idaho, but that's what we're up against.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'll tell you that the Building Biology Institute that I'm on the advisory board for, they have guidelines of so people should know to look at the building biology guidelines for radio frequency radiation, and there are 4 categories of risks. And, I think it's like, well, I don't remember 0 to 10, 10 to 100, 100 to 1,000, and anything over 1,000. And it's people have to know that from the purists, from the truth tellers who have read the biological science, what the levels mean. So I would refer people there.
Building Biological Institute.
It's called Building Biology Institute.
Biology Institute.
Building biology, they train people, technical people, and architects and engineers and general public too, if they're interested in all kinds of things related to not just, they have an EMF track, but also related to chemicals and mold. And
right.
they're really high integrity place, and they have been around for a long time. It started in Germany. It was called the Bau Biology.
Okay.
House biology. And yeah, and I would you might want to post their guidelines in the link to the interview, because that's what people need to know, and they need something to compare it to, once they know what their levels are. And I will tell you that there's only one way to know your risk, and that is to measure, as I'm sure you know. People think, oh, they live in a pretty neighborhood, they think everything's fine. Well, you don't know until you measure. And it's really important that people learn how to measure, or in one town in Massachusetts, in the local library, they'll loan you a meter.
Oh, awesome.
You take out a meter like you take out a book, And so it's fantastic. So local libraries should be encouraged to carry a meter so that people can go and figure out what's going on. Because there's no way you cannot guess. Sometimes the areas that are the nicest view, most beautiful looking are the worst. And sometimes the areas you think might be a problem are okay. And you see from walking around with a meter where you're going to find more problems at intersections. So where there's a lot of street lights and
Right.
you learn. I mean somebody once got me a meter and he said, "Oh, by the way," I was learning from him in the early days, and he said, "Oh, by the way, I ordered you a meter and I'll send you the bill." I said, "What? You ordered me a meter? Well, how much is the bill?" "Oh, it's going to be $500. Oh my God." He goes, it was like an initiation. It's time. You have to learn to figure these things out
Yeah.
yourself because there's nobody who knows. When I go around New York City with a couple doctors ask me to go see their patients' homes to see what they're, and I've cracked a couple of cases where they couldn't help them. And we found out that, the router was underneath the child's bed or something, I make the doctors come with me. I said, "I'm not just going to go and be a technician. You got to learn. You got to come and learn to do this." So I make the doctors come with me and so that they learn it and they have their eyes opened. And then that helps them with other patients down the road.
Yes. It's cognitive dissonance. You just don't believe that this could have that effect because they've been around slowly, but they've upped up the power. And I remember when I got the call to be a part of talking about a local bill in 2020. And I mean, I knew what I knew. My wife, though, was ahead of the curve. 1992, we moved to this new house. And Idaho Power, I don't know how this got started, but she called Idaho Power. They came out and they measured the dishwasher, the microwave, the television, the hair dryer, the curling irons. Unbelievable how much dirty electricity was coming off of those. We did this in 1992.
Wow. Yeah, it's
All I had back then was I had a wired in car phone in my car.
yeah, remember, and the antennas used to be outside the car.
Yeah.
That was great. That's what we should be going back to
Yeah.
instead
So,
of
but she
having a
measured,
cell
she had
phone
everything
in the
measured.
car, where the radiation bounces around the metal car inside and really makes it worse for people.
Oh, I've measured our clients' cars, especially the new ones. This one gal spent $100,000 on a Ford truck, and I took the meter out there and we went through and we saw how many meters were on. I mean, there's a meter back to the factory. There's a meter Bluetooth. Why do you need Wi-Fi in a car?
Yeah, it's a pretty crazy world. And then everyone's putting solar panels on their house and they think they're being green. And they're not realizing most installers don't tell them about the dirty electricity that gets created converting from the direct current from the sun to alternating current for use in electricity and, in our lamps and things. So there's a real problem there where people are getting sick in houses because they haven't put on the proper filtration system, inverter, a house-wide inverter to filter it out.
Yeah, that's true. I didn't even think about that, but yeah,
Yeah, I mean, if
wow,
you're using solar just to heat water, you don't have the problem. If it's just for hot water, that's okay because you're not converting it to alternating current like you need for electricity.
it's amazing what we've done to ourselves. Okay,
Lack of
Camilla.
comprehensive thinking. We need
Yes,
to think holistically.
that's right. That's right. Okay, so if they want to get a hold of you, I'm gonna put this in the show notes. If you're listening on the radio, go over to Whole Body Detox Show podcast, and all these notes. So Camilla at manhattanneighbors.com, right?
Yeah, it's Camilla, Camilla, at manhattanneighbors.org.
Okay, awesome. And we'll
And
have
if they're a group and they'd like to join the 704 No More effort, they can either contact me or send a message to info at 704nomore.org.
okay. Awesome. All right. You give us a lot today. That was a boatload. Thank you very much.
You're
I'm
very
excited.
welcome. Thank you. Thank you
Got me
very
fired
much.
up again.
And nice to meet you.
I really appreciate the work you're doing. I'm glad to see that the groups are coming together and we're getting a coalition together. And because that's what we need to do. We need to come together across this nation in a big wave.
Yeah, and if you know of people that might want to support 704nomore.org, we are going to be looking for some major donors.
Right.
So let us know. Let me know if anyone comes to mind.
We'll definitely do that. And I so appreciate you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Until next week, this is David DeHaas from Living Waters Wellness Center, where miracles begin by healing from within. Until next week, have a blessed week, my friends.
Once in a lifetime, a healing tool comes across your path that can really change the ability for the body to heal naturally and quickly. We have found such a tool, and it has changed the way my family lives and how our clients at Living Waters are helping to heal their body. It's called phototherapy, and phototherapy is the ability of your body using waves of light to turn on your body's ability to make its own stem cells. No surgeries, just simply a little Band-Aid sized patch that can activate your body to make stem cells. As you age, you're producing less and less stem cells, and by age 60, you're making none. So when it comes to healing and repairing, it is a long process. We can now speed that process up by using phototherapy. Go over to stemcellpatch.net and watch the videos there, and go ahead and try these patches for a few months. These patches have helped so many of our clients reverse pain, help speed up the healing, sleep better, and on and on. You'll see some of the testimonials over there. It's an amazing little tool that you should be using right now. For less than the cost of a cup of coffee per day, you can now be increasing your body's ability to make stem cells on its own. Stemcellpatch.net, or call the office at 208-3789-911.
Nothing is more exciting than seeing a client shed their diseases and symptoms caused from accumulated toxins from the chemicals in our foods, the clothes we wear, and the air we breathe, than by cleansing through colon hydrotherapy and treating the whole body naturally. Here's what a few clients had to say about their experience at Living Waters Wellness Center.
My name's Richard. I come to Living Waters because I was low on energy and for my memory, and I've accomplished both. Living Waters did it for me. Thank you, Living Waters.
My name's Peg. I came to Living Waters about a year ago, so I run pretty hard when I'm working. But through this retreat, I think one of the biggest things that I've gained is that self-confidence. Thank you, Living Waters.
Hi, my name is Anna Lewis, and I came to do the 10-day cleanse because I hadn't been feeling really well, and so I could cleanse, get rid of parasites and toxins in my body, and those were great help. So thank you, Living Waters.
To learn more about the 10-day healing retreat, go to livingwaterscleanse.com, click on the link 4 Natural Laws of Healing, and watch the video and check out this hundreds of clients who healed from their symptoms under the Success Stories tab, or call the office at 208-3789-911. That's 208-3789-911. The preceding examples may not be typical of your experience, may not be right for you. Talk to a healthcare professional to see if cleansing is right for you.